Hey everyone, Lotus Prince here. It's time to do our Q&A session for, I guess we'll just say May 2019. There we go. I labeled it. So I have a bunch of questions here that I got from my comment section, my Discord, so I'll go ahead and do these old style on an actual piece of paper and answer them one by one. So here we go. Justin, your head, haha, asks, what is the worst anime you've ever watched? This is something I haven't seen the whole thing because I watched a parody sub of it, but Musashi Gundo, that is one of those so bad it's almost good kind of anime. I think it was made by the same people who produced Lupin the Third, so it's baffling how it exists. The basic idea is it's samurai times and they're fighting other samurai and spirits and things like that. They're fighting ghosts, but this one guy fights with sword and gun. Like, whoa, cool. But the thing is, there are parts where the animation just seems unfinished. There was one part where a ghost did a slash, the guy dodged it, and you see the shockwave go past him, or not the shockwave, but just the wave go past him into the forest. And then you hear a bunch of crashing, and he looks back, and he's like, my god. And I get the feeling you were supposed to see a bunch of trees crashing down or whatever, but you didn't. There was just nothing. It was weird. And also the opening theme song is bizarre. That's all I'll say about that. Just Musashi Gundo opening theme, it sounds, I don't know, it's bizarre. I never ended up finishing it though because the people making the parody sub also just got bored and stopped after like 5 or 6 episodes. It was the funniest damn thing though. They would do like intentionally bad translations, like Hime, Hime is princess, but they would translate it as like He-Man, like the American 80s hero, or they had a guy who was a Ronin, which is a wandering samurai, and they would translate that as high school dropout because that is also a meaning of Ronin. It was great. It was just dumb stuff like that. The thing that really got me was the ending credits. They translated the lyrics as "Have you ever heard of the Orange Range?" which was the opening, which is sung in English for Naruto at the time. Naruto's end credits. That was. And everybody knew what that was at the time because those were the current episodes. It just really cracked me up. It was so dumb, and everyone knew it was dumb, and it was great. Can't think of a good name asks, what are your thoughts on the Resident Evil 2 remake and the upcoming Resident Evil 3 remake? I mean, I've only played the demo of the Resident Evil 2 remake. It looks interesting. I mean, they went way overboard with the violence, but it's a different kind of game. I look forward to seeing how they handle places outside what I saw of the police station as well. The upcoming Resident Evil 3 remake, I don't know, is there literally anything on it? Because I have no idea. If it's done in the same engine as 2, though, I could see that being interesting. Because people get freaked out when Mr. X chases them, so now how about a whole game like that? Because that's what Resident Evil 3 is. What do you expect from Resident Evil 8? Not a damn clue. I haven't played Resident Evil past 5, so I have nothing. What do you think of the next-gen console's arrival? I don't know anything about what the Xbox is doing, but if rumors are true, then I'm excited about PS5. If it's supposed to be PS4 compatible, and if it takes PS4 discs, especially foreign ones, if it takes foreign ones as well, then that could just overwrite the need for a PS4 at all. That would be amazing. I'll be very happy if that's true. Manny Stovall has a few questions. What are your thoughts on just every PlayStation and Xbox system? I'm not going into a video essay on like 9 systems. They're cool. They have a bunch of cool games. I'm really not going to go much further than that. Like, they have a lot of cool titles. I don't own a 360 or a 1. I've barely played the original Xbox. I've played a bunch of PlayStation stuff. It's cool. How did you get into the WWF? I didn't. I never did. I mean, I've seen some story sketches, and those are pretty entertaining, but anything I know about wrestling comes from my friends who watch it or social media, but I'm not into it myself. Do you like the WWF? Again, no comment. I don't follow it. And what's your opinion on The Evil Within 1 and 2? I've seen a little of 1. Conceptually, it looks really interesting. Very like mental, headspace kind of levels. That's very different from standard enemies in town or enemies in facility levels. So that's pretty cool. I don't know anything about 2. Carrick52. What are your favorite Yakuza games? Oof. 0 is way up there. 4 and 5 are way up there. I really like 2, but it hasn't aged well. And Kiwami 2 brought that game back, but it's missing. I mean, it has some additional features, but it's missing some features, so it's kind of a give and take. As far as a story, though, it's really entertaining. Almost a parody of Yakuza 1 in terms of how far they take things with the plot reveals and escalating the conflict. Oh, 1 billion yen isn't enough for you? Or 10 billion yen isn't enough for you? What if we have the stakes be 100 billion? Alright. What's most important to you in a Yakuza game? Story, heat moves, minigames, comedy, something else? That's actually kind of tough. I do like story, but I don't know, like, I wouldn't think that I would say things like minigames, but Yakuza 3 is probably the weakest because it had so much cut from it. So maybe there's more to it than I thought after all. The comedy and the story really are good. I mean, it's really difficult. What's the most important thing to me? Like, if I could sacrifice something else, what would it be? I really don't know. Although I will say, Fist of the North Star Lost Paradise is not actually a Yakuza game, but it is. It's Fist of the North Star Yakuza. And that is very grindy compared to the previous Yakuza games, and I'm not a fan of that aspect of it. So I like it when you don't have to spend all day trying to raise enough money or resources to do this, that, or the other thing. Groovy George, have you played any of the Persona games? No. Anthony Cooper, no, for real though, I have not played any of the Persona games. I do own P3P, like Persona 3 Portable, I have that digitally. I have 4 Golden, I have 5, and I have Dancing All Night, but I haven't touched any of them because they're so intimidating. If I play one, it's going to be for like 120 hours. Those games are gigantic, and I'm going to be that kind of person who wants to try doing all the social link whatevers and stuff like that. But then again, I hear that 3 and 4 haven't aged quite as well compared to 5, so like, I don't even know where I'm supposed to start. Everyone's probably going to say 4 or 5, but I don't know. I mean, I will grant this. Normally, I'm really anal about starting from the beginning, but I don't think I want to play 1 and 2. Anthony Cooper. Excuse me. I just want to hear your opinion about From Software. Folks often brought up in the discussion of whether or not Sekiro Shadows Die Twice ought to have an easy mode is the question of financial success. Wouldn't From Software be more successful and sell more copies of their games if they just added an easy mode? Wouldn't this appeal more to the masses and translate into higher sales? That's a fair question. I mean, it might. But it's interesting, though, because at this point they sort of dug themselves into a hole. Now they're expected to release Soulsborne games, and so people expect them to be hard. I mean, I'm not saying they should just make them easier. An easy mode would be interesting, though, that might make things more accessible. But at the same time, though, a lot of the difficulty comes from the gameplay itself, where you have to dodge and attack or block an attack at the appropriate times. Maybe it would be a matter of slowing the enemies down, or you deal more damage, they take less, or something. That could be tougher, though, with the Souls games, because those have online components. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, though, I think is strictly offline, so they probably could add an easy mode to that. You know there'd be a lot of online complaining, but then again, it would probably just be a vocal minority. Because there are people who are just straight up refuse to play the FromSoft games because their difficulty is just intimidating. Like, I tried for 30 minutes and I was like, nope. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it could get more people interested. Probably would. Robert Edwards. What style of storytelling do you enjoy most in video games and why? Environmental, cutscene, text-based, voiced, etc.? That's context sensitive. For FromSoft, we were just talking about that, I expect subtle lore storytelling. But in Yakuza, the cutscene storytelling is really great and it's engaging to watch, and you can just skip it if you're playing a game a second time or something. I guess I'll say what I don't like is when the game just interrupts with endless dialogue boxes where you're just pressing X, that's kind of frustrating. So, I don't know, maybe cutscene oriented or integrated into gameplay. Although I will say, one form of integrated into gameplay I really don't like is when it's not a cutscene, so you can't skip it. So you really just have to wait for it to end. Like, I don't know, like, The Last of Us. I love The Last of Us, but there's a lot of stuff where you slow down and walk and talk to your character, and it's really great for building environment. But if you're playing the game again, you're just waiting for it to end. Anything that's just unskippable, I find frustrating. I'll even take text boxes over that, because you can just mash to get through those. Do you have any ambitions slash hopes for your YouTube channel? I mean, I would like to be able to do this more often and, like, actually make good money off of this and make it a full-time job if at all possible, but, like, that doesn't just happen. So I don't know. I mean, I like to be able to pretty much just continue what I'm doing at this point. Maybe get some better recording setup or something, but I don't know really how far to go from there. And how often do you or do your group of friends talk about video games during social events? I don't know, a bunch. We get together and, like, watch movies or shows or play games or something, so it comes up relatively often. Salty Nuts Gaming. What is your favorite kind of horror game? Hide and seek games where you can only run or hide and can't fight back, like Amnesia or something? Or horror games where you have a third choice, fight back? Some people say that horror games where you can't fight back are not horror games. I mean, if they're scary. Do you like run and gun horror games or disturbing and psychological like Silent Hill? Okay, so for the run and hide, I think I prefer the stuff where you have the option of fighting back because it adds a level of psychology to it. With the run and hide games, if you see the enemy, you're like, oh, go the other way, now. But if you have the option to fight back, if you're too powerful that it takes the horror away, like when you start just running and gunning, that's where I think it's less horror because you're just like an enemy, gone. I think it's probably better if your resources are relatively limited, like Resident Evil 1, where you could fight, but maybe you should save that ammo for something when you really need it. What if there's a way you can't, if there's a place where you can't just run around the zombies? Like in Resident Evil 2, areas are much wider open, so you can just go wherever you want, but in Resident Evil 1, you're in hallways, and you can dodge, but it's tough. So I think I prefer when you can fight back, but wonder whether you should. That's why I think I liked Penumbra Overture more than Amnesia in terms of it being scary. I feel that Amnesia had the better story, but Penumbra Overture was like, a dog. What do I do with this? Whereas Amnesia, I'm like, oh, where's the closest hiding spot? And as for psychological horror games versus run and gun, well, like I said, run and gun is fun, but if I feel too powerful, then I think it's less horror at that point. I probably prefer psychological horror games to that. Resident Evil I would hesitate to call run and gun, so I'm okay with that too, but I feel that Silent Hill psychological stuff is more effective than an enemy came out, like that's startling, but I don't know how horrifying it is. Although I will say I've been playing Alien Isolation lately, and that game kind of does the best of both worlds. There are enemies you can fight, although your melee ability sucks against them, because eventually they learn to block. And you do have weapons, but low ammo when you first meet these things, so fighting kind of sucks against them, which is the point. But there's also the alien, which for the first half of the game, you can not fight against it. You can try distracting it at best. So that's a one-hit kill. So there's the hide, and there's the fight. Eventually you're able to kind of repel it, but doing so really expends your ammo. So I feel that game handles it in a very effective way. Anton Kishkowski, are there any games, new or old, that have not been requested, but you really want to do an LP on? Yeah, I mean, I kind of do want to get back into the Clock Tower stuff. There's still Clock Tower 2 and 3 and Haunting Grounds, and, oh, this is gonna piss me off. The spiritual successor, Nightcry. Hey, I got it. Nightcry, there's that too, which is actually, Nightcry is actually made by the person who did the original Clock Tower. So it's a spiritual successor, because it's not called Clock Tower, but it's actually made by the guy, which is kind of funny. I'd like to get back to those. I had put up to a vote whether I should do Skies of Arcadia or Valkyria Chronicles for my 100th Let's Play, and we went with Skies of Arcadia. I would really like to do Valkyria Chronicles, especially because there are freaking 3 more games plus Valkyria Revolution, and I want to see where the story goes. I've only played the first game. I want to let's play it and also be able to move on. Are there any chances of any co-op LPs on the horizon? Yes. At the time of this recording, I actually recently finished recording one. So, that'll be a few Let's Plays down the line. I'm gonna do... At the time of this recording, I'm doing Dark Souls 2 and Alien Isolation. Then there's the next LP I recorded. Then there's the next Patreon request. Then there's co-op. What type of games do you enjoy doing the LP of the most? And why? Type of games. Damn, that's tough. I don't know if I have a particular game that I enjoy doing, although I will say I prefer doing... Like, if I'm doing a visual novel, I prefer to do that co-op, because you have someone to bounce off of, and you give your throat a chance to recover. But I don't think I really mind doing almost any type of game. The only thing I think is more difficult to Let's Play is something where commentary just runs out. Like a beat-em-up. If I'm playing like an hour-long beat-em-up, after level 3, it's like, well, I'm moving to the right and I'm punching stuff. So, how was your day? And it's not even about the LP anymore, it feels a little off. Some people are way better at talking about topical things in their lives while LPing, but I try to stick to what's actually in the game. And for something like Golden Axe, you run out, even though I really want to play Golden Axe, but that game allows me to get away with it because it's like 30 minutes long. But if there's a really long beat 'em up, I eventually kind of don't know what to do with myself. Fakafan, if you could choose, is there an artist that you would like to have make you a title card? Any artist. Hell, we'll even go for dead ones. Well, if we're allowed to include dead ones, I actually had to think about this one for a while. This one, I don't know how well he's known internationally, and even within America, it might depend on where you live. But Al Hirschfeld, I think, would be very interesting. He was a very prominent artist for The New Yorker magazine for decades and decades. I think he started something crazy, like in his 20s or 30s, and he went on for like over, I think it was like 50 years or more. And he had an interesting style where he would do, they almost looked like casual drawings. It looked almost like he just kind of went like this and he had a drawing. And he would do caricatures of celebrities, but the thing is, you could easily tell which celebrity he was doing every single time. It looked like such an easy style to do, but nobody could replicate it, and he nails exactly what he's going for every single time. And not only that, but he also made a game out of it. He has a daughter, oh, this is embarrassing. It was either Nina or Nona, but I think it was Nina. And he would incorporate her name, like, X amount of times to each drawing, because his drawings are very line, like, almost like cursive writing, like, ooh, like loopy line stuff, so Nina could be snuck in there pretty easily. So it got to a point where the magazine would say, there are 7 Ninas, can you find them? So it was pretty cool, and it got you to look at his drawings for longer than you might otherwise. It really became an iconic style for a lifetime. It's amazing. Absolute Monster. What would you rate all the Dark Souls games? I mean, I'm not doing a rating out of 10, but I'd probably go, from what I've played, Dark Souls 2, then Demon, then Dark Souls 1, then Bloodborne. I have not played 3, so no comment. Which one's the hardest? Oof. That's a tough one. If we're counting Soulsborne, then maybe Bloodborne because it's just so aggressive. But I will say that the other Souls games make life really difficult if you just have to fight long battles. Dark Souls 2 was pretty tough, actually, I found, because you could only level up your weapons to plus 10, and not plus 15. Dark Souls 1 let you power up even more, and Dark Souls 2, some enemies, like the Cyclops Ogre things, seem to scale up with you. Not in general, but you'll get to a much later level where you fight a Cyclops again, and you're like, oh, this time I'm ready, but this one's a higher level Cyclops, so it's like, oh, well, it's still hard, I guess. Not to mention, some DLC bosses, the Fume Knight, that guy's ridiculous. Death Call's Call. How many of those Alice t-shirts do you have? I swear, it seems you wear it all the time, and it does not appear worn off. Actually, it's kind of funny you asked that. There's this one, and there's my Alice Madness Returns shirt, which I wear when I'm ending Let's Plays in the final installment. But the funny thing is, despite what it looks like, I barely wear these. Usually, I put this thing on, hey everybody, welcome to my Let's Play. We're going to be playing this. Looks pretty cool. Okay, let's go. And it's been 30 seconds. Then I take the shirt off and put on what I'm actually going to wear that day. The longest I wear this thing is for like a convention. I'll wear it for one day. And then I'll wear some other shirt on a different day. So I actually really don't wear these shirts that much. Last rule. God damn it. Which one would you choose playing? Or which one would you choose? Playing strip poker with Hiroshi. Ew. Or sticking your dick into a bear trap. I'm gonna go with strip poker, because it doesn't involve sticking my dick into a bear trap. Neon Wolf. Have you ever thought that you might change your usual format in the near future? I don't know about the future, but the near future, no. After doing this for so long, so yeah, with how times are changing and preferences / interests of the public can change along with time, sometimes change in one's ways will be needed in order not to be left behind and obsolete. Yeah, I get that, but like I don't really have like a motivation to make radical changes to the channel or anything like that. The closest thing I could think of is like getting a different camera or setup or something, but I like doing what I do, what can I say? Cypher Doradon. What's the next LP plays? Well, I mean, this is kind of cheating, but Alien Isolation, because, I mean, I already announced that one, so it's coming up. But the one after that, we're going back to our horror series. Are you ever visiting Morrowind? Probably not. Like, I just can't bring myself to care about the Elder Scrolls games. Like, I've seen a bunch of them played, and I know that they're good at what they do, but I am just not interested. Will there be more frequent streams? Currently, I'm going to probably say no. Again, if I could ever change my setup and work situation, maybe, but right now, no. Rhett Buckley. Are visual novel games more enjoyable when done co-op or solo? Oh, it's kind of funny, I actually already answered this one. I would say normally co-op. I loved streaming 428 Shibuya Scramble, but it was exhausting to do. I feel that it would probably be more enjoyable when I have someone, again, to bounce things off of me, and I can bounce things off of them, and also it just gives us a break and gives us more opportunity for voices if we're doing that kind of thing, like for Danganronpa with Pyro Jack Frost. What are your thoughts about the Metro series games and books? They look interesting, but unfortunately I have not played or read any of them. Would you do a video on the Metro 2033 board game? God damn, I didn't know that existed. Can I still get that? If I can, maybe? And what horror games come close to the Silent Hill series in terms of game-changing environments? Psychological storytelling of both the setting, NPCs, and the main character? That's a tough one, because not a lot of games do the Silent Hill thing. I actually really don't know about that. I mean, I don't know about game-changing environments. Like, Fatal Frame 3, kind of, where you're in the Dream Mansion or the real world, but I don't know about, oh no, all of a sudden my whole world changed. Like, I can't really think of many games that have done that. I don't really know if I have an answer for that. Storytelling of the NPC and the main character. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of games with like unreliable narrators and things like that, but that are like Silent Hill, that's tough. Unless it's like some fan-made game that's like, here's my type of Silent Hill game, but I don't know about other games that have really done stuff like that. Red031796. Would you like another remake of Resident Evil 1? Probably not. Like, it's already been remade. I mean, it would be interesting to see a Resident Evil 2 style, but I don't need, like, another remake, you know? What gameplay style would you prefer? Tank controls, third person, first person? That's tough, because the original Resident Evil was designed with tank controls in mind. It has fixed camera angles, and you actually play better with tank controls, in my opinion, for those. But with the Resident Evil 2 remake, and even Resident Evil 4, which does play with tank controls, I think you're better off with regular run-and-gun controls like Resident Evil 2 remake. Resident Evil 4 is over the shoulder, but still plays with tank controls, and it feels a little stiff as a result. What elements... Oh yeah, what would you prefer, third person or first? Definitely third. What elements would you like to see in this new remake if you could do Resident Evil 1, and what should be removed? That, I don't know. I mean, I like what Resident Evil 1 added, but they didn't really add it because Lisa Trevor was cut content, so they restored it. I don't know about added stuff though. I don't even know what I would think of in that regard. Dragon Age SG7. You've mentioned elements of D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, in a few Let's Plays. Did you play or just know some of the terms? I'd probably say I just know some of the terms. I have a bunch of the books from like the 80s and 70s because I found them and I thought they were cool. I've only played it in middle school where it was a super casual experience and we weren't doing hardcore rules. Do you have a favorite class or race? I don't know about race. I've only really usually played as human, but I don't know if I have a favorite race. But class, I'd probably go with Thief. I just like the idea of getting a bunch of cheap extra damage. And, I'm an opportunist in a lot of games I play anyway, so Thief is right up my alley. Do you have a favorite or preferred edition? No, I don't really know the differences between one edition and another. I have a bunch of AD&D books, but what does that mean? I don't really have much to compare them to. Elemental Hero Joe. In your opinion, what video game has the best story? I don't even know if I can answer that. That's very difficult, and it depends what you're trying to do. For example, I recently played 4-2 Boy Scramble. I thought that had a brilliantly executed story. The plot kept going in crazier directions you didn't expect, but they still made sense, except for some of the intentional bad ends, which just got silly. I feel that Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons, very cleverly told its story. I got a really satisfying feel from Skies of Arcadia's and Valkyria Chronicles' story. Silent Hill has very cleverly told stories in its various games. So the best story, I really don't know about that one. There's way too many variables. If you could be a character in My Hero Academia, what superpower would you want? That's freaking tough. That's just straight up, if you could have any kind of superpower, what would it be? Wow. I don't know. Probably some kind of durability or something, just for safety. I'm not going to be a superhero and fight people with crazy, insane black hole suck up your body portal powers or teleportation power. I don't know, man. I want to just live my life more confidently. If I fall, I'll be fine. That kind of thing, probably. Not very creative, but I'm not going to go fighting crime. Not everybody's going to do that. What were your hobbies growing up? Reading, playing tennis, playing video games, playing the piano. To a degree, some board games. Not hardcore hobbyist board games, but I don't know, like Stratego and things like that. It was pretty fun. Chess. DJ Gamer, when do you think you'll finally get around to, I read that wrong. When do you think you'll get around to finally LPing Deus Ex Invisible War? That's a fair question. There's a lot of stuff that I really should do. The thing with Invisible War is the problem with that game is when you enter a loading screen, it completely refreshes your monitor. I actually tried recording it years ago, and it just made it too much of a pain in the ass. I think there's a mod that might circumvent that, and with the original Xbox version, I might not have to put up with that. If the game's actually playable, then... recordable, I should say, then I'll try doing that, perhaps. Ichigo-Berry15, what game scared you the most? That's tough. I can remember the first game that really got to me was probably Fatal Frame 1. When I Let's Played it, it actually wasn't so bad, but that game really got under my skin the first time I played it. I remember that for sure. Silent Hill 3, what moment scared you the most? There we go. Silent Hill 3, Resident Evil 1, and Eternal Darkness had some real winners. Eternal Darkness had the big bathtub scare. Silent Hill 3 had the nurses just spawning, literally just spawning off camera, so you suddenly hear their breathing. It scared the hell out of me. What did I just say before that? Resident Evil Remake had the dog jumping through the window, because you walk past the window and a little crack comes and you're like, and then nothing happens, and on your way back it jumps through and you're not prepared for it at all. I hadn't even played the first Resident Evil, so I didn't know that was almost like a nod to the first jump scare. Because in Resident Evil 1, you walk past that window, a dog jumps through. So if you knew that, and you play the remake, you walk through, gotcha, but then it jumps through for real on the way back. That's crazy. Those are probably way up there, though. General ledger. What are those two things in the frame to my left? Yeah, that's a good question. These things. So those are interesting. Those are reproductions of patents and their concept art for Monopoly and Scrabble, the board games. It just looks cool when they're framed and you can see kind of old style what these things could have been. Insane Buffoon. What are your thoughts on the American dub of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure? Honestly, I don't really have many. I've only really heard the sub. I'm aware that Matthew Mercer voices Jotaro in Part 3, and I've heard a little bit of his because I saw the Overwatch nod, because Matthew Mercer voices McCree in Overwatch, and it's become like a meme when he does his super move. What's it called? I should know what this is called. When you have your super move charged. My friend plays Overwatch, and I watch him play it all the time, and I lost what it was called. The Ultra moves? This is embarrassing. But when you have one of those, and he does like the Red Dead Redemption, like slow motion firing at the various characters, but he goes like, it's high noon, and he just takes everybody out. There's a part in Part 3 of JoJo where Jotaro and Dio are standing each other down, and Jotaro has the advantage, and he's like, if we were in a Western, this is the part where I would tell you to draw. And it's like, it's really stilted writing, but JoJo does that all the time, and it's great. But in the dub, they tweaked it slightly, so Jotaro says, if we were in a Western, this is the part where I would say, it's high noon. And everyone's like, oh my god! So I've seen that, but otherwise I really haven't heard much of the dub for, like, any of the parts. Eric Carr, any chance for any more comparison videos? Like the Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2 comparison videos, I would like to do more at some point. It's just that they are freaking exhausting. They are an ordeal. It took me like 30 hours to edit Resident Evil 1. It was insane. And that's not including the time it took me to capture the footage. They're great when I finally make them. It's like such a feeling of pride and accomplishment. But man, you gotta work at them. Gelly Elfson. If you had to choose between a scary game and a depressing one, which would you go for? Honestly, I would say it probably depends on my mood. Maybe scary in general. I do kind of like horror games, but there are some times where I just want to play a downer game, like Corpse Party or The Last of Us. Sometimes it's just one of those days where it's like, you know what, let's just play something where I, like, am miserable by the time I beat Chapter 5 or whatever. And the last question. Seibutsu. Is there anything you want to do, or had wanted to do for a long time, and for whatever reason you have not been able to on YouTube? For example, a Let's Play series you've always wanted to do. I did kind of answer that question already. Or a scripted feature you wanted to make but fell apart at some point. Kind of, yeah, for a scripted feature, but like, realistically I wasn't going to accomplish those. I thought it would have been cool if, at the end of like the Danganronpa Let's Play, we could have somehow recreated a class trial, but you would need such ridiculous camera work for that, and I just have like my camera, so you would just need somebody to be like running around. It would look ridiculous. I would have also liked to have, like a few years ago, I had recorded a crossover with Linkara, the comic book reviewer, and we did Killer 7, the comic book series. I was thinking, wouldn't it be cool if we could do the end of the first level of Killer 7 where Harmon and Kunlun have their talk and recreate a version of that? But again, how the hell was I actually going to do that? Good luck, but it's just cool to think about, I guess. Are there any people you would like to do a collab or co-op Let's Play with that you've not yet? I mean, probably. Like, there are various people and, like, former Channel Also members that I think would be cool to collab with. The closest I've come so far to actually doing that has been the aforementioned comic book review with Linkara, or, showing up on, like, as a guest on Dina, Natalie's, horror podcast when we were talking about the Silent Hill Revelation 3D movie, where I was way more forgiving about that movie than I am now. Are you open to guesting on other people's video work podcast projects? Yeah, probably. like again, I've done that at least once. I've shown up as a really brief cameo in another work, just like, hey, it's me, I'm on the video, but like I've done. Actually, I've showed up in a couple of Linkar's videos just for, when he does his goofy parodies of last time on my review show, and it's just a bunch of crazy, ridiculous stuff that never happened. So I did one of those, but I'd be interested in that idea. So those are the questions I have. Thank you very much for submitting them. It was fun to answer these, and I always get a kick out of answering things that a lot of which I hadn't really considered myself in general, gaming or not. So thank you very much for providing these questions, and as usual, thank you very much for your support. It was very fun doing another Q&A session, and I guess we'll see when I do another one still, sometime in the future. Until next time, everyone.